Hello, I'm Shane Hegarty. I'm the author of the Boot books, which I'm holding up now. There's the first one. You can see it there. Lovely, shiny silver. The second book, The Rusty Rescue. Kind of gold, isn't it? Lovely, shiny gold there. And there's the new one with a bit more proper gold. The Creaky Creatures, lovely hardback book. I really love this. I'm very excited. And I am recording this for Cork Libraries because normally at this time of year, in October, I get to go from my office where I'm writing here at the moment, here all the way in Skerries in County Dublin. I get to go all the way to Cork, where my grandfather and the Hegarty family are from, and I get to have a brilliant time for 2 or 3 days, traveling around all the libraries and meeting all the brilliant young readers from the various schools all around Cork. And unfortunately, we can't do that this year. So they put a big wall around Dublin and said, no more Dublin people are to come to Cork. So I'm stuck in Dublin. They didn't put an actual wall in, by the way. But unfortunately, can't travel down, which is a pity because going to Cork is one of my favourite things to do in the whole wide world. So the next best thing is for me to talk to you through the magic of the internet. And I was trying to think of the things that I could talk to you about, and one of them was the idea of how to write your own characters, because I know that there are lots of really, really good writers out there among you, and also kind of really good illustrators and people who just love putting stories together in whatever way and telling stories, whether it's the kind of stories you tell each other when you come back after the weekend, back into school, or stories you're writing down or drawing or whatever it is. And I thought I'd tell you not just about how to make your own characters, maybe how to write a robot character, because that's what Boot is all about. And I'm going to use the examples from my own book and kind of how I do it to help you guys. Now, the way I'm going to do this one is I'm going to show you a few different things in a special presentation, but because I'm really not very good with computers and stuff, I don't know how to stick my face in the corner, wherever it might be, while I show you the presentation. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'm sure one of my 7-year-olds would be able to do it. I have 7-year-old twins, and I have a 9-year-old, and they're really, really, and I have a 15-year-old, and they're all kind of able to do everything like ninjas on the internet. I'm not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear, but you'll still be able to hear me as I talk through and show you this really snazzy presentation coming right up. Woo. And here we are. How to make your own robot characters. And I'm just going to go through some fairly easy steps, and I'm going to use the examples of the characters and the ideas and how I came up with my ideas for the Boot books. And you'll see the lovely covers here, and that's Boot in the middle, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Boot in a moment. I should say that all these amazing drawings you're about to see, those fantastic covers and the books that I've shown you, I didn't draw those. I can't draw to save my life. They're all done by Ben Mantle, who is there on the man with the hat, basically. And Ben is amazing. Ben has an amazing ability to take the ideas and the words that are in my head and the images I have in my head, but which I can't draw, and Ben can put them down as these incredible drawings and illustrations in the books. So you're going to see a few more of those now, and if you were to get the Boot books, or if you have read the Boot books, you will know that they are amazing illustrations, absolutely amazing. And he really brings these characters to life. And this picture was taken in London on a lovely sunny day when he drew that amazing picture in the window of a bookshop. And it was so hot while he was doing it. It was like being in an oven. But I was fine. I went and had a lovely fizzy drink and some cake while he did the hard work. Now, where do we start with Boot? I suppose we should start with Boot the character. And when I was trying to think of my robot, I was trying to think of the kind of robot that would be someone that, as a reader, you would really want to care for and really want to like. And the big thing about Boot, and the very opening line of the very first Boot book, which I'm going to read now, is, "I woke up with only 2.5 memories. Something was very wrong. I should have remembered so much more. My head is built to hold millions of memories, and I also have extra space in my left butt cheek in case of emergencies." And where has Boot woken up? Boot has woken up in a grinder about to be mashed into a million pieces. And with those 2.5 memories, Boot sets off to find its owner. And I wanted to make sure that we had a robot that people would really care about. And because we have so many toys in our house because of the children that live there and have gathered all these toys, there's a big avalanche of toys in our house every birthday and Christmas. I decided that it would be really good to have a robot toy. And that is what Boot is. Boot is a little toy that has been, unfortunately, well, we don't really know what's happened to Boot, but all we know is that poor old Boot is in this grinder and having a tricky time. I don't spoil too much for you. So that was the beginning of it for me, was this toy robot. And Boot goes out into the world and meets all these different characters. And I'm going to show you again in a minute how, sort of step by step, you can put your characters together. But this is a picture from the very beginning of the Creaky Creatures, and you'll see that's a robot pig. And that is a robot dog called Poochie, who's completely rubbish at doing all its tricks. And when you ask it to spin around, it lands on its head. And that's Noke, who is this tough, indestructible robot that Boot meets. And all these robots live in this world just a bit ahead of us now, a few years ahead, where there are robots everywhere. So instead of mobile phones, we kind of have robots. People have robots, and they're obsessed with their robots. And you can see some flying in the air, the drones there. And I guess it's because when I was growing up back, I'm very old, so when I was growing up in the Ice Age, we were always told there would be robots in the future, and I wondered if there would be robots when I was growing up. And for a long time there weren't really robots, but now we have robots everywhere, and we even have robots in our houses. And we have a robot dog in our house because we didn't want to get a real smelly, hairy dog. We got a robot dog, and the robot dog isn't very good. A toy robot dog, and it kind of does everything wrong. And that's where Poochie the robot came from, and that's a little hint about some of the things that you can do to come up with your ideas. And Noke is this tough, indestructible robot, and it's a bit like a mobile phone, the old mobile phones. And that's where I come up with my ideas, is by looking around me and seeing what kind of things I can find inspiration from. So I used mobile phones for a lot of them. And again, there's a hint about the things we're going to look at. So what robot would you invent? That's a good way of trying to start your idea. So when I was thinking about it, as I said, we had this toy robot, and there's Boot being a toy and having great fun with its owner, Beth, who is the girl that Boot sets out to find. And the 2.5 memories are of this brilliant girl, Beth. And Boot is a toy robot. But when you're coming up with your character, you can decide, well, what kind of robot would you like to invent? And there are so many different types of robots that you can have, and you can give them all these special features. So these robots here that you're seeing are all part of a factory that appears in the second Boot book called The Rusty Rescue. And as you can see, they're all different shapes and sizes. Now, these robots are all a bit broken, and that's part of the story. A lot of the robots get thrown out. But as you can see, some of the robots have wheels, some of them have heads, some of them don't have heads, some of them have arms. I think they all have arms there. One of them's got a broken arm. They have different shaped eyes. One of them there is a screen for a head. Looks a bit like a computer game, just getting off the bus. And the bus itself is a robot bus. So when you're trying to think of the kind of robot you want to build, think about what robot invention you could have, or what sort of job it might do. Now, if you want, you could pause this now. If you're looking at this in your school, or if you're looking at it at home, you could pause this and have a look around and say, well, what kind of jobs could the robot do all around you? And you could say in a school, maybe the robot could serve you lunch, or maybe the robot could be your teacher. Could you have a robot teacher? Maybe you need a robot to play with at break time, to do really cool games for you. What kind of robot would you have? What would it look like? What would a robot teacher look like? What would a robot lunch server look like? Would sandwiches come shooting out of their tummy? So you can think about all those things. You could pause it if you want and have a chat about it. And just think about all those different things and different ideas and how it might be. Say your robot lunch server might have 8 arms and be able to serve lunch to everybody all at the same time, or pick up your lunch boxes and clean them with one hand while giving you yogurt with the other, or something like that. I came up with this robot who's called Rusty, and Rusty is a really strong robot whose job it was to be in a factory, and this is from the Rusty Rescue, and I don't want to spoil too much about it, but Rusty works in this factory, and Rusty's only job was supposed to be to lift really, really strong things, big boxes and things like that. But you can see when you look at Rusty's arm that poor old Rusty's job is not really possible, because Rusty's arm is broken. So Rusty ends up in a completely different job, which is to sit on a chair over and over and over again to see how long it lasts before it breaks. So Rusty just works in this factory, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that now in a couple of minutes. But to sum up on this part, what would you invent? If you look around you in your room, in your school, on your street, there are things you could invent all by yourself that would help make your life a bit easier, or help you take over the world, or help you help other people, or whatever it is you want to do, or to win football matches, or to have the best birthday parties that have ever been had. Think about all those things, and then imagine the shape of that robot, the arms, the legs, the head, the things that would be all over it, and get inspiration from all those ideas in your own robot. And that's a big part of what I do. What can you steal from all around you? Now, I use bits and pieces from everywhere, or I find inspiration from everywhere. And when you're making a robot for your story, and especially if you're drawing it, or if you're writing the story and a friend of yours is drawing the story, or if you're drawing the pictures and the characters, and your friend is writing some stories based on them, you can use all these ideas. And in a minute, when I come back, when you can see my face again, I'll show you a few things in my office that I'm just going to grab and see what might provide inspiration. Have a look around. You can use tin cans, bits of hoovers, and these are some of the pictures here. But I bet you, if you look around right now, in whatever room you're in, you will see things that will inspire you, and could be both really good additions to your robot, but also that will give you inspiration then for ideas. So if you look around and see, for instance, the tin cans there, what could they be? They could be ears, they could be noses, they could be used to hold things. They could be used maybe for wheels to scoot around on. They'd be a bit squishy after a while, wouldn't they? They'd be a bit bent. They could be used for all sorts of things. You could have it as a robot alarm, and you could put some shaky stuff in it, and everybody would know the robot is coming. Have a look around now, and again, you could pause at this moment and go off and see what things are in the room, in your classroom, or wherever you're watching this video. And if you're in a library, next time you're in a library, you could have a look around the library. I bet you there's loads of really cool things in there that you could use to turn into a robot. So you could pause it and go and have some fun and see what things you can find all around you. Now, the other thing I use from all around me, and it's maybe not really that these things are sitting around everywhere, but I love to use inspiration from the things that I loved when I was growing up. And that's okay to do, is to be inspired by all the things that you really loved. And I was really inspired by lots of robots that I remember from growing up. Now, you guys, young readers, are far too young to remember K9, who was in Doctor Who. And I'm sure a lot of you know Doctor Who. But K9 was a robot dog. And it just kind of wheeled around, and it had something that came out of its nose. I can't remember what it was, but you can see, I think it might have shot things out of its nose. And it was sort of a robot dog, and it was Doctor Who's robot dog companion. And these are the kind of robots that I remembered and always had in my head, and always thought, when I write a story, maybe I'll have a robot that's kind of a bit sort of funny and silly, a bit like K9 from Doctor Who. And it was Metal Mickey was the name of a silly robot on TV. Oh, this isn't Metal Mickey. This is Marvin, the paranoid android. I'm wrong. This is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and Marvin was a really depressed robot who nobody likes me, and I'm just here being a robot and nobody cares. And I always thought that was very funny. And there's Data from Star Trek, The Next Generation, who was a robot who wanted to be human. And this was a little moment in Star Trek where Data got to laugh for the first time. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about all that kind of stuff now in a second. There was Short Circuit, Johnny Five from Short Circuit. Again, a kind of a funny robot who's being chased around. And then, of course, there's Wall-E. And Wall-E is another robot from more recently who I loved. And you know, when you see a robot, and even though it's a bunch of metal and tires and tin cans and things, and yet you feel so strongly for them, and you so want them to get out of their problem and to survive. And it's amazing the power of writing and stories, that even though something isn't human and it's just a machine, you can still want it to be okay, and you want it to be happy, and you love it so much. And that is the power of stories. And they're all the things that I was inspired by. So have a look again, have a think about the stories and the characters that have inspired you, and the stories and the characters that you really love. And could they be could little bits of them become part of your characters? So again, if you want to pause now, you could have a little chat about that, about the characters that really inspire you, and to have a think about those that can go into your stories, and maybe even do a short list of what are the things that you love about those characters that you'd love to have in your characters. What else do we have? And what if, this is a great question. What if you were a robot? Because again, we were talking about Wall-E, and why do we feel so strongly about characters who aren't really human? But if you put all those emotions and ideas and feelings into a robot, like, how would you feel if you were a robot and you either, like Boot, woke up in a grinder with only 2.5 memories? You would feel very strange about it, wouldn't you? And what if you had emotions? How would you feel? Because it's really hard being emotional when you're a human being, and we grew up with them. But we all know sometimes we feel scared and we don't know why, or sometimes we feel worried, or sometimes we feel very giddy and happy, and sometimes we feel a bit down, and sometimes we feel really excited by things, and all of that. And they're all part and parcel of being alive. Can you imagine what it would be like if you were a robot and you had to feel these things? How would it be when you don't even understand what emotions are, maybe? Like Boot wakes up with these emotions and trying to figure out, why do I have all these things? Because robots are not supposed to feel emotions. So why does Boot feel them? And you can see here's a picture of Boot and Noak meeting a bear. And I won't tell you too much more about it, but they meet this bear in the Creaky Creatures, and you can see Boot's face, which are these cartoon drawings that appear kind of magically on Boot's face. And you can see Boot there is going, oh, it's a bear. And you could imagine if you were a robot, how would you feel if you were in certain situations, whether you met a bear, or if you were a robot and it was the first time you ever went swimming, or if you were a robot and it was the first birthday party you ever had, what would it be like trying to put cake inside? You can see Boot doesn't have a mouth. Noak does, but maybe the cake would cause all sorts of problems and get everywhere. So you can imagine these things yourself. If you were a robot, how would you feel about things? And then the other thing I love doing is asking, what human things would you find really weird? And you can see one really weird thing there. There are so many things that humans do that are weird. We've hair growing out of our ears and our noses. Well, some people do. We have all these really strange habits, like this kid has. We are always leaking everywhere. Why? In my books, The Robots Were Always Wondering why humans have water coming out of their eyes and stuff leaking out of their nose, and why they dribble and things like that. So we're really leaky. So you could, as a robot, wonder, why are humans so weird? Why are they doing all those really weird things? So that's another thing you could always pause the video and have a chat about in your class. What if you were a robot would you find really, really weird about human beings? So there you go. That is the main part of it so far, or the main ideas for how you could create your robot characters. Just a few quick points. All the ways you can do it. You can think about what kind of robot you want. You can imagine all the different parts of that robot and the features it might have. Whether it can shoot lasers out of its eyes, or whether it can go on wheels, or whether it can run, all of that. You can imagine, as I said, what sort of job it does. Does it help you get your breakfast in the morning? Does it carry you to school? Does it win football matches for you? And you could then imagine what it would be like to be that robot, and imagine all the emotions it has. And you can use so many things all around you, and so many things that are inside you as well, and all the ideas or emotions you've had, and put it all into that character. But the most important rule of all is have fun. It's your imagination. You can do what you want. Have a great time with it. And there we are. I hope that was helpful for you. I did promise you, when I was saying about how you can look around and find things really easily, that I would look at my desk. Now, my desk is down, obviously, just below the screen here, and it's spectacularly messy, so I'm not showing it to you. But I can show that I can pick things really quickly off the desk. Like there's something, that could be a wheel for a robot, couldn't it? It's kind of a bank thing that I have. Like, that's a really cool kind of little keypad thing. You could use that for something or other to give it instructions, or if it was like a walking robot safe. What else could we do? Or if it was, if you needed it to kind of do all your maths homework for you. What else do I have? I actually have not just one set of headphones, but 2 sets of headphones. So you could, I'm finding it hard to take them off now. You could definitely use those for different things, couldn't you? I'm not quite sure what. So what do you think they could be used for? Maybe they could be shoulders, for kind of cool shoulders like that. Or they could be grabbers, could they? For hands. Grab, 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 grab. So you can see there's like 3 things really, really quickly that I found that I could use to create a robot and a robot character. So look around, find inspiration from everywhere. You will find it so quickly because you guys have amazing imaginations. I know that. I've been to Cork and met loads of brilliant young readers from Cork, and they always have the best imaginations. Don't tell the other counties that. Now, yeah, I'm going to finish up now, but I just want to repeat the important rule number one: have fun